Hey guys, tonight we're heading way back to the Tang Dynasty, a time of poetry, palaces, and postal routes. You're not royalty, you're not a warrior, and you're definitely not Li by composing odes over plum wine. No, tonight you are something far humbler. You're a postman. Or more precisely, you are the sleepiest, sore-footed courier trudging through 8th century China with a satchel full of scrolls and a heart full of resignation. The air is still dark, cool, dry, thin. You blink groggy as a bamboo wind chime taps softly against your paper window. The chill of the tile floor slaps your bare feet as you rise, because of course, heating systems won't be a thing for, another millennium or so. Your room smells faintly of old tea leaves and smoke-dried pork, but mostly like dust. You roll your neck and hear it pop, like a mini abacus clicking in protest. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, post your location and the local time. I love seeing where and when you all listen in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The first thing you do is step into the courtyard to splash your face with water so cold it might as well have been delivered straight from the Himalayas. You know that theory that cold showers make you more productive. Tang Dynasty, you would disagree. Fiercely. You shiver, blinking at the eastern sky, which is just barely turning that milky gray. Your little home, if you can call a single rented corner in a shared courtyard home, creaks and sighs in the morning hush. Somewhere, a neighbor's baby squalls. A chicken loses an argument with a cat. And above it all, Luoyang begins to rouse itself. This is one of the two imperial capitals, vast, bustling, heavily scented. You feel small here, but you also feel strangely important. After all, without you, who would deliver the prefect's poetry to his friend in Chang'an? Who would make sure the tax notices made it to the villages before the collectors did? As you light a little oil lamp and sit beside your clay teapot, waiting for it to heat, you roll your shoulders and mentally brace for the day ahead. You slept maybe 5 hours, and not well. The mat was lumpy, the night was hot, and your neighbor won't stop snoring like a haunted ox cart. While you wait for the tea to steep, you open a bamboo slip tucked under your sleeping mat. It's yesterday's log, a list of delivered scrolls, seals acknowledged, distances covered. Your handwriting is abysmal. You squint at a smudged name. Was that Minister Zhang or Mr. Wang? It might be both. You make a mental note too. Do nothing about it. At this point, your philosophy is, if they didn't complain yesterday, it wasn't important. Historians still argue whether postal workers like you were considered official state servants or just glorified errand boys hired by the district office. Either way, you're trusted to carry messages over long stretches of countryside and bustling city lanes, from one registered stop to another, which is noble if you squint. As the tea warms your hands and the clay cup clinks against your teeth, you lean back against the wooden pillar beside you and listen. Crows caw. A distant drumbeat begins somewhere near the West Market. That's your cue. The government watchtowers beat time in segments, called Zheng, and this one tells you it's nearing the 5th Zheng right before sunrise. Time to move. One of your roommates, a grizzled man with a limp and an obsession with fermented mung beans, snores loudly behind a paper screen. You tiptoe past him, grab your worn hemp outer robe, and fumble with your belt, which is little more than braided rope dyed with ink stains and regret. You fish out a sweet rice ball wrapped in lotus leaf and bite it on your way out, balancing it awkwardly with your teacup as you duck through the low door frame. The street is still quiet, cobbled unevenly with wide stone plates that glisten from last night's mist. A skinny dog trots by with something suspiciously bun-shaped in its mouth. You give it a nod. He's probably working harder than you are. Most homes in your neighborhood don't have toilets, let alone plumbing, so the alleys smell like a mix of last night's dinner and this morning's chamber pots. You breathe through your mouth, lightly, You head for the relay office just outside the northern quarter, where today's dispatches are being handed out. On the way, you see a group of monks walking barefoot in single file, collecting rice in wooden bowls. One of them looks 10 years old. You nod politely. They nod back, unsmiling. You consider asking them to bless your knees. They're already twinging and you haven't even begun. Fun fact: Tang Dynasty couriers like you often walked over 30 kilometers in a day. Some ran. Some had horses. You do not have a horse. You have sandals made of straw and exactly one good ankle. At the edge of the city, the rising sun finally breaks over the mountains like a yawning dragon. Everything turns orange and pink and gold. And for a brief moment, you forget your aching feet and that one boil you pretend not to notice. You arrive at the small clay-end wood dispatch hut. A junior scribe is waiting there, balancing a scroll in one hand and chewing on a candied ginger root like it owes him money. "Ah, you're late," he says, not looking up. You're not. He's just early. You say nothing and hold out your hand. He gives you your dispatch list for the day, a thin packet tied with a bit of fraying red string, and a small cloth bag of wax seals. Each destination will need a signature, or at least a thumbprint. If you lose one, it's a reportable offense. You once had to write an apology to a postal captain in Chang'an because a goat ate your seal pouch. You still swear the goat was planted. One of the other couriers is already gearing up. He has new sandals. You hate him slightly. But for now, you're ready. Or at least, as ready as someone who's about to walk into several hours of scroll hauling, chicken dodging, and suspicious packages can be. And so, with your dispatches tucked under one arm and your tea now lukewarm in your belly, you begin your day. You step out into the waking city, adjusting the satchel strap across your shoulder with the grimace of someone who already knows it's going to chafe before midday. Your robe is stiff from the morning dew, and maybe a bit of yesterday's sweat you didn't completely wash out. Because who has time to do laundry and deliver imperial tax records? You walk briskly, sandals slapping against the cobbles, kicking up tiny clouds of dust that sparkle in the morning light. The streets are still mostly quiet, though a few shopkeepers are setting out their wares: bundles of onions, sweet plums, lacquered fans, and for some reason, dozens of ceramic frogs. You don't ask. Today's weather looks promising. That's both good and bad. Good because dry scrolls are easier to explain than soggy ones. Bad because heat means sweat, and sweat means chafing, and chafing means rage. The Tang Dynasty's idea of performance gear involves about 3 layers of coarse hemp and a rope belt. At least your sleeves are wide enough to swat flies with. That's useful. You duck into a shadowy alcove to finish suiting up. It's a quiet moment, a ritual really. First, the underrobe, thin and stained with what might be ink or tea or blood from the time you tripped carrying a tax scroll and faceplanted into a crab vendor's cart. Then the outer robe, thick and beige and unmistakably civil servant chic. You fold it left over right, always left over right, unless you're preparing for your own funeral, and frankly, that's not on the agenda today. Your rope belt goes on next. It's frayed in places, knotted in others, and still smells faintly of the fish oil you spilled on it last month. You cinch it tight, with a grunt and a prayer to the god of unbroken seams. Straw sandals. You own 3 pairs, all terrible. You pick the least offensive one. They're simple. A few woven layers, some toe loops, and the faint memory of structural integrity. You slide your feet in and instantly remember the blister on your left heel. It's still there. Of course it is. Historians still argue whether Tang couriers were required to wear specific uniform colors to denote their rank or office. Some records hint at blue sashes or yellow tassels for imperial deliveries, but most agree that the average local postman, like you, looked more like a wandering laundry pile than a state official. You open your satchel to check the contents, the way a paranoid chef checks if his knives have been stolen between prep and service. Today's bundle includes 4 sealed scrolls with red wax, stamped by the local registrar. A smaller packet tied with silk string, marked personal, which always spells drama. 2 folded sheets of rice paper in a thin bamboo case. And a rice cracker, already broken in half, presumably by fate. The scrolls are labeled in hasty brushstrokes. One's bound for the mayor's aunt, who lives just 2 alleys down but still insists on official delivery. Another goes to the accounting office in the East Sector, a place where the floor is polished and your jokes die instantly. The others are for outposts beyond the city walls. You'll need a horse relay for those, or at least a decent bribe for a stable boy who owes you. You secure your satchel, tucking the flaps carefully to guard against sudden downpours, or sudden pigeons, which have a track record of disrespecting personal property. You also grab your identity tag, a small rectangular slip of lacquered wood, carved with your name, role, and a tiny stamped character that might mean official or might mean chicken. You can't read it. You lost your glasses years ago, because glasses don't exist yet. There's also your whistle. It hangs from your belt, a small, curved tube of bamboo carved into the shape of a crane. It's meant to signal relay stations or, in theory, call for help. You used it once dramatically when a pack of dogs chased you through the grain market. All it did was attract more dogs. You still carry it, partly for show, mostly for luck. The streets are warming up. You hear the rhythmic clatter of wooden sandals, a tofu vendor hollering about today's discounts, and the soft murmur of temple bells being polished. A beggar sleeps in the shade of a lotus seller's cart. You drop the rice cracker next to him without stopping. It's stale, but it's food. He grunts, halfway between thanks and indigestion. You tug your satchel closer, settling its weight against your hip. It shifts awkwardly like a child who doesn't want to be carried. You sigh. There's a long day ahead. One last check, you pat yourself down, brush, satchel, whistle, ID tag. Emergency plum candy. You've learned the hard way that nothing keeps you going through mid-afternoon heat stroke like a hit of fermented sugar. You're ready. As you step out of the alley and into the fuller morning light, your robes flap softly around your legs like damp curtains in a lazy breeze. You've got work to do, important work. Even if half the city pretends not to know your name, you know it. And somewhere deep down, so does the mayor's aunt. You walk with a practiced rhythm now, each step calculated to avoid the puddles of leftover chamber pot rinse and the sharp-edged stones that wait like bandits in the road. The sun is higher, but it's still got that early glow filtering through the woven rooftop shades and fluttering laundry like golden ribbons. A few alley cats stretch and skulk past you, disinterested in your sacred task. Rude. Your first stop is still a few blocks away, so as you go, you mentally run through your checklist, the one you don't write down anymore. Not because you're a genius, but because writing it down takes too long and the ink never dries properly this time of day. Satchel, check. ID tag, check. Seal pouch, oh, absolutely check. Whistle. You finger the little bamboo crane and give it a brief toot. It makes a soft, almost apologetic sound. A toddler nearby starts crying. You quietly slip it back into your belt. Now, time to focus. The postman's kit isn't glamorous, but it's efficient. The satchel you carry isn't just any sack. It's reinforced with layered hemp and backed with waxed paper, designed to keep out light rain and nosy fingers. It smells like old tea, ink, and a faint hint of soy sauce that has no business being there. The inner compartments are labeled by hand, your own shaky brushwork marking Imperial, City, and do not open or face the wrath of 1,000 monks. That last one was a joke, until a junior monk actually did open a packet meant for the Ministry of Rights. You've never seen someone apologize in 5 dialects before. You reach down and check the seal pouch, a small leather roll tied with silk cord. Inside are wax pellets, red for government, black for confidential, and green for you're actually not sure. You've only seen green used once, and it came with a scroll bound in eagle feathers and smelling faintly of cinnamon. You did not ask questions. There's also your name chop, a small carved stamp made from soapstone. You keep it in a bamboo tube, wrapped in oiled cloth. It's your lifeline. Without that stamp, your delivery record isn't worth the brush it was written with. The problem is, it also looks remarkably similar to a candy wrapper, and children have tried to steal it more than once. You round a corner and spot your first delivery point, the residence of Aunt Wei, or, as you secretly call her, the scroll collector. The woman sends and receives more correspondence than most ministers. Her house is modest, but her reputation is not. She's the type who corrects your pronunciation of thank you while you're bowing. You knock softly on the lacquered door, which opens before your knuckles even land the second time. Of course. She was watching, she always is. You're late, she says, even though you are 10 minutes early. Her gray hair is coiled into a perfect knot, and her eyes are sharp enough to read through sealed envelopes. I have your scroll, you say, bowing, and your ginger root seeds, as requested. You hold up a cloth-wrapped bundle. She snatches it from your hand with the precision of a hawk catching a field mouse. Did you double knot the string on the last letter to my nephew? She asks suspiciously. Yes, you lie, you're not sure. Could have been a triple, could have been no knot at all. She eyes you a moment longer before grunting approval. Fine, go, your left sandal is loose. You blink, look down, and realize she's right. The toe loop is slipping off. How did she? No, don't question it, just go. As you walk away, you check the satchel again and mentally cross Aunt Wei off the list. You have a system after all. First, inside the city deliveries. Then the East Gate exit for outposts. Then the relay station. Then the villages. And maybe, if you survive, a bowl of sweet yam soup on the way back. That's the dream. As you turn toward your next delivery, something catches your eye. A bird, fat, self-important, with a tiny lacquered tube strapped to its leg. A messenger pigeon. You watch it land on the tiled roof of the city record's office, ruffle its feathers like it owns the place, then disappear into a window. Here's a fun tidbit. The Tang Dynasty loved birds for short-distance urgent messages. If you were lucky enough to work at a place with trained pigeons, you didn't even need to run half your routes. But you've got your own 2 legs and a lifetime supply of foot splinters. Historians still argue whether birds replaced human runners completely in certain branches of the postal system. Some say they were a supplement, others claim entire networks were avian-operated by the 9th century. You don't care. You just know you've never had a pigeon carry your satchel, and you'd probably get pecked trying to make one. One delivery down, several to go. You adjust the weight of your bag, shift your shoulders, and keep moving. You think briefly about the secret package in your satchel, the one wrapped in silk and marked personal. It came with no instructions, just a wax seal with a strange design. A crane eating a peach. You're tempted to peek, but you don't. Not because of honor, because of Aunt Wei. She's watching. You know she is. Another corner. Another stretch of street, lined with vendors now calling out louder. You pass a man selling herbal cures for nightmares. Another man offering fresh eel skewers, it's too early for that. And a boy holding a sign that says, "Cursed mirror, look at your enemies, see their secrets." You make eye contact. He winks. You walk faster. You reach your second stop, the accounting office. It's the kind of place where the ink pots are cleaner than the employees. You knock, deliver the scroll, get a grunt of acknowledgement, and leave before someone asks you to carry backup tax ledgers. Again, 2 down. The rest waits outside the city walls. But for now, you take a brief pause beneath a mulberry tree, lean against the rough bark, and let the early sun warm your cheeks. A few petals fall into your lap. A breeze passes through your robe. You sigh. Then the pigeon from earlier flutters by again, this time dropping something wet on your shoulder. Perfect. You brush the bird's contribution from your shoulder with the kind of dignity only a Tang Dynasty Postman can summon. Dignity. And just a whisper of silent rage. Somewhere in the heavens, the pigeon smirks. It's time to leave the city walls. You make your way toward the East Gate, passing through the merchant quarter, where the air smells of crushed cinnamon, roasted chestnuts, and the faintly alarming stench of pickled radish. The clamor is louder now. Hawkers shout over each other in a chaotic symphony of salesmanship, banging gongs, clapping hands, and occasionally hurling vegetables at rival stalls. One vendor offers you a deal on a silk underrobe, worn by a real eunuch, which raises more questions than you're prepared to answer before noon. You sidestep a barrel of fermented tofu and press through the gate, where a sleepy guard barely glances at your ID tag before waving you through. He's carving something into the wall, maybe a poem, maybe a tally of days since anyone brought him snacks. You nod as you pass. He grunts back. That's your entire relationship. It's beautiful, really. The open road greets you like a lazy dragon stretching in the sun. A dusty, uneven path lined with thickets of tall grass, and the occasional tree bent sideways by decades of wind. You feel the weight of the sky now, open and vast above you, clouds drifting like the folds of a forgotten scroll. You glance at the silk-bound packet again, still unopened, still whispering, "Look at me." You resist. Barely. Ahead lies the village of Shentu, your next destination. It's about 5 li from the gate, roughly 2 kilometers, depending on which monk did the measuring. Tang measurements were notoriously inconsistent. One historian joked that a li could stretch from short walk to regret. Some say the unit was standardized under Emperor Taizong, but others argue the reforms never reached most rural areas, so welcome to guesswork. You keep a steady pace, sandals slapping the road in a tempo that matches your breathing. You've done this walk 100 times. It's long but manageable until you hit the hill. Ah yes, the hill. It rises in front of you like a smug loaf of bread, deceptively gentle at first, then sharply cruel at the top. It's not particularly tall, but it's legendary among couriers. Steep, exposed, and always slippery from wind-blown grit. You stare at it, sigh, and begin the climb. Halfway up, your satchel decides to shift its contents into your kidney. You adjust it with a grunt, trying not to topple sideways. A passing farmer with a cart of radishes gives you a sympathetic look. "Delivery?" he asks. "Execution," you mutter. He laughs. You don't. You crest the hill after a series of increasingly dramatic wheezes. At the top, you pause to catch your breath, hands on knees, the morning heat starting to cling to your back like a persistent debt collector. You pull out your emergency plum candy and pop one into your mouth. Sweet, sour, life-saving. From this height, you can see Shentu nestled in the green basin below. A scattering of tiled roofs, a river winding beside it like a silver thread, and if your eyes aren't lying, a man chasing a goose with a broom. Standard village activity. You make your way down the far side of the hill, more carefully this time. Gravel makes cowards of us all. At the bottom, you spot the stone marker that marks the Imperial Post route, a worn pillar etched with the characters for direction, peace, and oddly, cabbage. You've stopped questioning these things. The village greets you with familiar sights, woven fishnets drying on fences, children chasing each other with sticks, an old man snoring beside a stack of firewood that's definitely not his. You head toward the magistrate's hall where the official drop is located. The building is humble, mud brick walls, faded red banners, and a single stone lion that's missing half its face. You knock 3 times, the ritual knock of a courier. A teenage assistant opens the door, yawning. "Delivery," you announce, holding out the scroll meant for the local administrator. The assistant squints. "Is this the one about the rice levy, or the one about the stolen ducks?" "Rice levy. Ducks are tomorrow." He nods, takes the scroll, and disappears back inside. You don't get a thank you, but you do hear the unmistakable sound of a dumpling being dropped on the floor. You count that as a win. Before you leave, you take a moment to refill your water flask from the village well. The water's cool and clean with a faint taste of iron and lotus. A welcome relief. You splash some on your face, which startles a nearby chicken. You sit for a brief moment on a low stone wall, letting your bones realign. A breeze stirs the trees. Somewhere, a lute plays a lazy tune. The silk-bound packet sits on your lap now, practically humming with mystery. You reach for it. But then a voice, courier. You look up. It's old lady Min, hobbling toward you with the determination of someone who has something to say. You have a letter for my cousin in Xiang? Yes, she asks, eyes narrowed like she's already preparing to be disappointed. You nod, you think you do. You shuffle through your satchel, finding a small rice paper note folded in a pattern that looks suspiciously like one of her past deliveries. She nods once, satisfied, and hands you a bundle in return. Give her this, it's her herbal salve. And tell her if she applies it wrong again, she'll end up with goat spots. Goat spots. She leans in. You don't want to know. You take the bundle with cautious fingers and carefully wedge it into your satchel. Another delivery. Another bizarre village subplot. Just a day in the life. As you stand and stretch your spine back into courier shape, a little girl tugs your sleeve. Are you the postman? You smile. That's what they tell me. She holds up a crumpled drawing of what might be a cat, or a yak in a hat. Can you give this to the emperor? You pause, absolutely. You slide the drawing into a side pocket, because sometimes it's not about getting there. It's about believing it might. You've got more stops ahead, the day is still young, the packet still waits, and the road rolls on. You're back on the road, feet whispering over the dirt path as the sun lifts higher into the Tang Dynasty sky. A pair of dragonflies zigzag ahead of you like celestial guides with short attention spans. The countryside unfurls on either side, terraced rice paddies in the distance, patches of wild lilies, and the occasional suspiciously quiet ox. The satchel is heavier now, not because of more deliveries, but because you've just remembered that one of your remaining scrolls includes a court summons. Nothing like ruining someone's mid-morning with a polite invitation to explain themselves to a very unsympathetic magistrate. You pat the scroll gently, as if to say, sorry in advance. Your next stop is an isolated tea house known as the Quiet Leaf. It's not on any official delivery list, but it is on your route. The owner, Master Dio, insists on paying a small tip in pickled lotus root if you drop off the monthly ledger scroll from the city. You've never been sure whether the scroll contains inventory records or illegal poetry. The man is cagey and owns 3 cats with better posture than most ministers. The tea house appears at the bend in the road, nestled under a curtain of hanging wisteria. The scent of roasting barley and osmanthus blossoms seeps into your senses. It smells like nap time and good choices. A wind chime tinkles gently as you step onto the wooden porch, your sandals making soft thunks against the weathered boards. Master Dio appears before you knock, wiping his hands on a faded cloth. His robes are faded indigo, his beard tied with a twig. One of the cats sits on his shoulder like a well-trained hat. You're early, he says, sounding disappointed. You're welcome, you reply, fishing out the scroll. He inspects it, sniffs it, why, then tucks it into his sleeve. And, he prompts, you hold out your hand. He disappears into the back for a moment and returns with a small, wax paper-wrapped bundle. It's still warm. Extra pickled ginger today, he says. Lucky courier. You bow slightly and pocket the parcel. The cat glares at you. You glare back. Historians still argue whether tea houses like this served as informal postal relay points. Some records suggest hidden compartments in tea crates were used to smuggle messages during court disputes or minor rebellions. Others claim that's just tea-stained gossip. Either way, your current delivery methods are mostly cat-free, which you consider a blessing. You rest for a moment at a table by the edge of the porch, sipping a complimentary barley tea while Master Dio grumbles at a customer who tried to pay in duck feathers. The fields stretch before you, dotted with scarecrows and the occasional actual farmer. A red-crowned crane flaps past lazily overhead, oblivious to the hard work being done below. Then, time to move again. The next stretch of road is less charming, narrower, muddier, and haunted by the buzzing drone of summer insects in full chorus. You smack at a mosquito and mutter a curse involving leeches and karma. The heat presses in like an overbearing ant. You pass a farmer leading a stubborn mule and trade nods. A few moments later, you hear an echoing plop and realize the mule has deposited something truly majestic in the middle of the path. You detour around it with the grace of a ballet dancer having a bad day. Up ahead lies the riverside hamlet of Unwind. You've got 2 deliveries here, one for the local herbalist and another for a man you only know as Old Stringfish. You still don't know his real name. You're not sure anyone does. The herbalist's shop is the first building you spot, marked by bundles of drying mugwort and a slightly alarming statue of a bear holding a ginseng root. You knock and the herbalist, a woman in her 60s with the energy of a caffeinated rooster, opens the door. "You brought the letter from my cousin in Lonquin," she demands. You hand it over. She snatches it, nods once, then thrusts a cloth pouch into your chest. "For your feet," she says. "They smell tired." You murmur thanks, unsure whether to be flattered or insulted. She's already gone. You head toward the river, following the sound of banjo-like strings and someone arguing with a duck. Old Stringfish. You find him on his usual log, barefoot, shirtless, and playing a pipa that's missing one string. His beard reaches his stomach and holds, you suspect, multiple generations of rice grain. "Message for you," you say. He blinks, then grins a mostly toothless grin. "Ah, is it from the Emperor? Number from your nephew. He wants his boots back." Old Stringfish chuckles and tucks the scroll into his sash. "Tell him I turned them into a fish trap. Works great." You shake your head and return to the road, passing a group of children catching frogs and daring each other to eat a boiled egg whole. One succeeds. One gags, the others cheer. You take a moment to check your satchel again, just a few scrolls left. One sealed with the black wax, confidential, official, heavy with whatever bureaucracy weighs as it travels. And then the silk-bound package. You pause beneath a willow tree, its branches swaying like a sleepy dancer. You sit, placing the satchel beside you, and take out the mysterious bundle. The crane-eating peach seal is intact. You roll it between your fingers. The material is high quality, imperial silk. The cord is knotted in a specific style used by scholars, possibly Buddhist, possibly Taoist. You've seen similar knots on temple offerings. You bring it closer to your ear. Nothing, not even a whisper of spiritual enlightenment. You don't open it. Not yet. Because right now, a butterfly lands on your knee and it feels like the right moment to do absolutely nothing. You let the silence stretch, the road ahead forgotten, the journey paused. For one rare second, time bows to you. Then you remember you're running late and leap to your feet, startling the butterfly into a spiral of chaos. You adjust your robe, square your satchel, and return to the path, shaking dust from your sleeves and regret from your hair. The next village is 3 li away, and if you time it right, you'll pass through just as the baker sets out his golden buns. You live for those buns. The sun is beginning its slow dip toward the west. The shadows stretch. The road hums, and the postman continues. You've developed a theory. Roads are sentient. How else can you explain the way this particular stretch of path has gotten bumpier, dustier, and somehow longer since the last time you trudged it? Every stone seems personally offended by your existence. Every gust of wind carefully chooses the most irritating direction. Still, you walk, past a grove of bamboo where crickets chirp like tiny gossips, past an abandoned rice cart that may or may not be haunted, past a tree that has, for generations, served as the village notice board. Today's news: a wedding, a missing goat, and a rather opinionated haiku about foot fungus. Your next stop is the village of Unwind. Unlike the sleepy hamlets you've visited so far, Unwind is a bit eccentric. There's something about the place, a tilt to the roofs, an abundance of paper charms fluttering in doorways, and locals who seem to regard outsiders with polite but intense suspicion, like cats considering whether or not to pounce. As you approach, a rooster crows, not in greeting but in warning. It's standing in the middle of the road wearing what appears to be a child's doll-sized hat. You nod respectfully and step aside. One does not question Yuquin's fashion trends. The village itself is tucked beside a bubbling spring, hence the name Jade Fountain. Legend has it the spring was blessed by a celestial fox spirit, though historians still argue whether the story was invented to boost property value or discourage bandits. Either way, the water does taste cleaner than usual, and the villagers drink it like it's divine tea. Your destination here is the Temple of Wenwu, a small but fiercely maintained shrine that honors both civil and martial spirits. It's unusual. Most temples specialize, but this one insists on balance. The result is an altar that holds both calligraphy brushes and tiny wooden swords. You once saw a monk duel himself in a mirror here for spiritual equilibrium. As you approach the gates, you're met by a novice monk sweeping the path. He pauses when he sees you. "Courier," he says, squinting, "do you bring the text from Luoyang?" "I bring all things," you reply solemnly before adding, "except patience. I ran out last week." He smiles and waves you inside. The temple smells like incense and ambition. Inside, an elder monk named Huizhao greets you with a slow nod. His robes are so immaculately folded they could probably cut tofu. You hand him the scroll, wrapped in yellow silk, tied with a strand of red horsehair. Definitely something philosophical, possibly revolutionary, absolutely above your pay grade. Huizhao takes it with a murmur of thanks, then offers you a bowl of lotus seed porridge. You accept. It tastes like warm clouds. You begin to wonder if this is what peace feels like. As you eat, you notice a mural on the inner wall. It shows a long procession, foot messengers, horseback couriers, even pigeons with tiny scrolls tied to their legs. At the center, a scribe under a pine tree holds an unfurled scroll as long as the yellow river. You point. "Is that the Imperial Archive?" "Some say it is," Huizhao replies. "Others say it's a metaphor for memory. Memory doesn't give you shin splints." He laughs, the sound soft as worn silk. Before you leave, the monk presses a dried chrysanthemum into your hand. "For clarity," he says, "and because I don't trust the herbs in Xiangwen." Back on the road, the afternoon light filters through the trees like golden mist. The shadows grow longer, the air a little cooler, and your steps a little slower. You pass a group of weavers working under a pergola, tying threads into geometric patterns so intricate your eyes blur just watching. One of them waves and shouts something about your confused-looking eyebrows. You wave back with the dignity of someone who doesn't fully understand the insult but chooses to accept it anyway. A sudden rustle to your left. You freeze. The bushes tremble. Out waddles a badger. It stares at you unimpressed. Then it steals a plum from your snack pouch and disappears without a sound. You contemplate revenge, then remember the badger is not your biggest problem. Your route still includes one more village before dusk, and your feet are starting to emit gentle pleas for retirement. You take a short break beneath a crooked elm. The silk-bound packet is still there, tightly sealed, untouched. You almost wish it would open itself just to put you out of your curiosity. You're convinced it's important, but what kind of important? Royal decree, forbidden poetry, a dinner menu for someone terrifying. You shake your head and set it aside. The last village today is Sheeg, Stone Drum. It's named for an enormous boulder on the village outskirts that sounds hollow when struck. Naturally, people hit it constantly. Children, shepherds, the village drunk, all of them addicted to its satisfying bee-woomph. You arrive just in time to witness a teenager trying to balance a chicken on top of the drum, while his friends chant encouragement. The chicken seems game, if slightly confused. You duck past the crowd and head to the home of the local healer, whose delivery is a thin bamboo case labeled urgent. Inside are medical records, sealed with a paste made from fish oil and cinnabar, a combination you do not want to leak in your satchel. The healer, a gaunt man with fantastically unkempt eyebrows, greets you with a toothpick still lodged between his teeth. "You're late." "I'm early," you correct. "For tomorrow," he replies, grinning. "Come in, sit. I'll trade you boiled pears for gossip." You step inside. His house smells of vinegar and rosemary. Boiled pears are bubbling in a pot that looks older than you. You accept the bowl with a grateful nod and let the warm sweetness coat your tongue. He peers at your satchel. "Anything confidential?" You gesture at the silk-bound packet. "Only the usual existential burden." He whistles. "Fancy cord, probably cursed." You pause mid-bite. "Kidding," he says. "Mostly." You leave just before sundown. The sky has turned a dusky orange, and the air buzzes with crickets and the soft warbling of some bird you've never successfully identified. The villagers light their lamps one by one, casting golden glows that shimmer on the cobblestones. You reach the top of a ridge and look back. Smoke curls from chimneys. Laughter rises from dinner tables. Somewhere, someone hits the stone drum with a broomstick and is immediately scolded by their grandmother. You turn forward again. The road bends ahead, and you follow. The sky is velvet now, folding down over the Tang Dynasty like a slow-blinking eye. You walk with the rhythm of someone who's accepted that their legs are no longer theirs, just two stubborn logs cursed with consciousness. The moon is just beginning to peek over the treetops, soft and silver, a sleepy coin tossed into the sky. You're between towns now, navigating the winding path through thick woods. These aren't the friendly kind of trees that shade picnic spots. These are brooding, ancient, slightly judgy trees that lean in a little too close, whispering leaf speak you can't quite translate. You tighten your grip on your satchel. The scrolls within seem to rustle slightly. Or maybe that's just your imagination. Probably. Your lantern glows faintly, the flame bobbing with each step. Moths spiral around it in manic devotion. Every so often, something rustles in the underbrush. Probably a fox, possibly a spirit, maybe just a confused goat that wandered off and now lives a double life in the woods. You whistle to yourself. Not a tune, just a loose collection of hopeful sounds meant to deter specters. According to old Tang legends, this forest is home to a Yaegyuai, a spirit said to resemble a deer with 6 eyes and a voice like wind chimes. Historians still argue whether such stories were symbolic warnings about rogue tax collectors, or just bedtime tales meant to keep children from running into the trees. You haven't seen any 6-eyed deer yet, but you do step in something squishy, possibly supernatural, definitely unpleasant. Eventually, you reach the halfway pavilion, built for messengers like you. These stone resting places dot longer routes, offering shelter, a cistern of fresh water, and sometimes a roof that doesn't actively leak. This one's surprisingly intact, moss-covered, yes, but cozy in that abandoned temple-turned-airbnb sort of way. A faded carving on one pillar shows 2 riders bowing to each other, a reminder that even on the longest roads, someone once paused to say hello. You sit on the smooth bench and breathe. The world is quiet here. Even the insects lower their volume in reverence. You pour water into a clay cup, sip slowly, and listen to the creak of old wood. Your satchel rests beside you like a sleeping animal. You could fall asleep here, honestly. But then you hear footsteps. Deliberate, measured, you tense. It's late and this route isn't exactly a nightlife hotspot. You tuck the silk-bound packet closer to your side, fingers brushing the crane peach seal. The footsteps come around the bend, and out of the shadows steps a fellow courier. She's tall, dusty, and wears the uniform of the Southern Courier Line. Gray sash, leather ankle wraps, that little pouch of chili seeds they all carry for mid-journey snacking. She raises an eyebrow at you, then nods. "North route." You nod back, "West branch." She flops down on the opposite bench, pulls out a gourd and offers it. "Rice wine." You hesitate for a beat, then accept. It burns your throat and wakes up your spleen. She grins. Name's Jen. You give yours. There's a moment of companionable silence. In courier terms, this counts as a full conversation. She pulls a scroll from her pack, glances at it, then mutters, "Still argue over this one." "What is it?" you ask. "Map of the old relay stations," she replies. Some say they followed ley lines. Others say they were just built wherever the horses stopped sweating. You laugh softly. Makes sense either way. You exchange a few stories. Her run-in with a rooster that wouldn't yield the path. Your haunted badger incident. The ongoing mystery of who keeps leaving pickled quail eggs at the halfway stones. Jen suspects a secret courier guild tradition. You suspect a very bored monk. Then it's time. She tips her gourd in farewell, and you both vanish into the opposite directions of your routes, like drifting sparks from the same fire. You leave the pavilion, belly slightly warmer, steps slightly steadier. You follow the path as it curves along the edge of a narrow ravine. The moon lights your way. Somewhere below, frogs sing to each other in what sounds like a deeply personal argument. Up ahead, the trees thin and you spot lanterns, a scattering of golden lights marking the edge of a settlement. You've made it to Shui, your next village stop, named for its calm river and famously unfriendly ducks. You pass through the gate as the last street vendors pack up for the night. A woman selling sugarcane nods at you. A boy chases a paper kite that's clearly given up the will to fly. Your destination here is the village hall, modest, tiled roof, a wooden plaque that reads Office of Harmony and Miscellaneous Duties. Inside, a sleepy clerk greets you. He has ink stains on every visible surface of his body. You hand over the official decree scroll, black wax seal intact. He breaks it with a small bronze knife and reads it without blinking. Then he sighs. Another tax adjustment. That'll go over well. You offer him a polite, not my problem smile. He produces a stamped receipt and a small pouch of rice crackers. Standard courier gift, he mutters. They're only slightly stale. You thank him and step outside. A breeze picks up, rustling the river's surface into soft ripples. You follow a side path down to the water's edge, where stepping stones cross the narrow flow. Fireflies drift lazily above the reeds. You take a moment, crouch beside the stream, and splash cool water on your face. It wakes you up just enough to remember how tired you are. You look at the silk packet again. You almost want to open it right here beneath the stars. But there's something about it, something sacred maybe. Or maybe you just respect a good mystery. Either way, you tuck it away again and rise. One last scroll for the night, your final delivery before you seek a place to rest. You walk through the quiet village, past shuttered windows and dozing dogs. A musician plays a dizzy flute somewhere, the notes winding around the rooftops like dreams. And you keep moving forward, always forward. It's late now, later than late, really. That kind of night where even the owls are yawning. Shui village lies behind you, a scattering of dim lights along the river, soft and fading like memory. Ahead, the path narrows. It leads you toward your final stop for the day, a small outpost called Lionhua Bend. But calling it an outpost might be generous. Lionhua Bend is little more than a tea house, a postmarker, and a couple of sleepy watchmen who seem less interested in guarding anything and more invested in their endless game of stone tiles and hissing commentary about each other's fashion choices. You'll deliver your final scroll here, then hopefully collapse on something soft, or at least not moving. The road dips and curves gently. A patch of night-blooming jasmine perfumes the air. Somewhere in the trees, an animal makes a dramatic but entirely unnecessary noise, possibly to assert dominance, possibly just bored. You adjust your satchel. Only one scroll left. Well, one scroll and that sealed silk packet, which now seems to weigh more than your whole bag. You've started wondering if maybe it's filled with something besides parchment. Lead ink, gold leaf, a poem so emotionally dense it affects gravity. You arrive at Lionhua Bend in time to catch the last flickers of candlelight inside the tea house. A paper lantern swings gently above the door, casting a sleepy red glow that makes everything look vaguely romantic and slightly sinister. Inside, the smell of overbrewed jasmine tea and old wood hits you like a warm quilt. A middle-aged woman looks up from behind the counter. Her hair is in a tight bun, held by a chopstick that could probably double as a weapon. She squints. "You're late." "That's sort of my whole aesthetic," you reply. She grunts and waves you over. You hand her the final scroll, red ribbon, yellow wax, faint scent of sandalwood. She inspects it like it might explode, then tucks it into a lacquered box behind the bar. You've delivered this kind of scroll before, part census, part agricultural report, and part passive-aggressive notes from the regional governor. "Want food?" she asks. You blink. Is that a threat or a question? Depends on how long you've been chewing road dust. You accept. She brings out a bowl of thick millet porridge with chopped chestnuts and a sliver of pickled plum on top. It's basic, hearty, and tastes like sleep. You eat slowly, savoring each bite. A tea house cat appears at your feet, demands nothing, and curls up against your boot like you're a trusted chair. The woman, her name is Lynn, sits nearby, knitting a sock that is far too large to be for a human. "So," she says without looking up, "you going to open that?" You follow her gaze to the silk-bound packet. You shake your head. "Not mine to read." She raises an eyebrow. "That's what everyone says until they do." You say nothing. She doesn't push. Outside, a gust of wind nudges the lantern, making it creak like an old swing. You finish your food, pat the cat, and thank Lynn for the meal. She offers you a straw mat upstairs, where a few other travelers are already snoring gently in a row of bunks. You make your way up the stairs, satchel still strapped to your shoulder, out of habit mostly. Tang couriers have a saying, "The scroll doesn't sleep until it's delivered." You settle onto the mat, remove your boots with a sigh that probably disturbs the local ghosts, and lie back. Above you, a narrow window shows a sliver of night sky, and you drift, not fully asleep, not quite awake. Your thoughts wander like birds circling a distant roof. You think about the road, about bamboo groves and vinegar-footed herbalists, and that chicken on the stone drum. About the monks and the map and the courier Zhen with her chili seed pouch and her mystery scroll. You think about the packet again. The seal is a pressed peach blossom, unusual for official Tang correspondence. Most imperial seals feature dragons, cranes, or at least something that could win a fight. But this, a flower. You wonder what kind of message needs wrapping in silk, binding with horsehair, sealing with a bloom. Historians still argue whether these kinds of scrolls were early prototypes of poetry-based diplomacy or merely carried, encoded financial data too dangerous to entrust to standard systems. Some even claim they weren't scrolls at all, but bundles of woven truth charms, messages meant to be felt, not read. You think of that mural in the temple of Wenwu, the scroll so long it wrapped around the mountains, looped through rivers, and doubled back into the storyteller's hands. An archive not of paper, but of breath and memory. A courier's duty isn't just about delivering words. It's about carrying meaning through the moving present, across boundaries, through weather and gossip and time. You're not just moving ink. You're delivering continuity. You don't open the packet, but you do fall asleep with it resting on your chest like a very formal cat, a soft breath. Then another. Then sleep, the kind that creeps in slow, like fog curling over a quiet lake. And as you sleep, the tea house settles around you, the creak of wood, the sigh of old windows, the tick of some forgotten clock deep in the rafters. Outside, the stars burn quietly, and the road waits. Dawn arrives shyly, not with trumpets or declarations, just a soft exhale of light curling around the edges of the tea house window. It slips over your mat, brushes your cheek, and pokes at your eyelids like an overly polite cat demanding breakfast. You wake slowly, reluctant to leave the soft warmth of the straw mat and the bazaar, half dream where you were chasing a scroll that kept turning into a fish. For a brief moment, you forget where you are. Then the weight of the satchel on your chest reminds you. Oh, right, Tang Dynasty courier, possibly carrying secret flower-coated government gossip. Business as usual. You sit up, stretch, and wince as your back emits a sequence of pops that could easily be mistaken for bamboo fireworks. A few other travelers are still asleep, wrapped in light blankets and dreams of simpler roads. You tread quietly around them and descend the stairs, boots in hand. Lynn is already up, as if she never went to bed. She nods at you over a steaming kettle and pours you a cup of barley tea without a word. The cat is perched on the counter like a sphinx, staring into your soul. You sip, let the warmth fill your chest, and nod in return. No words are exchanged. None are needed. You sling your satchel over your shoulder, and with a final scratch behind the cat's ears, it tolerates this but files a formal complaint with its eyes. You step back into the morning. The road is silver with dew. Mist floats above the fields, and distant farmers move like ghosts through rows of mulberry and millet. A heron watches you from a stone by the river, all legs and judgment. You cross a narrow footbridge and begin the next stretch of your journey. This part of the route weaves through farmlands and minor villages, where life ticks quietly beneath the empire's radar. You pass women washing clothes in the shallows, old men shelling beans with theatrical sighs, and a child dragging a toy ox made from clay and two wheels. Every so often, someone waves. Courier uniforms are as familiar as the morning bell here, messengers of news, sometimes welcome, sometimes not. You're both respected and avoided, a walking question mark with an official seal. You stop at a minor station by mid-morning, a dusty stone structure with a thatched roof, manned by a clerk who's more ink blot than man. His entire being smells like vinegar and dried squid. He accepts a scroll from your bag with a nod and hands you a boiled egg and a bamboo tube of drinking water. Fair trade, honestly. As you continue walking, your mind drifts. You recall one of your earliest training days, when Master He, the head of your local courier guild, gave a lecture on scroll etiquette. A message, he said, isn't just about the words. It's about when it arrives, how it's folded, who opens it. The story lives not in ink but in motion. Historians still argue whether Tang messengers were trained in coded posture language, subtle body gestures that could convey additional meaning during delivery, like a secret nod, a held breath, or the way a scroll was turned when offered. Some believe this was essential during politically charged transfers. Others say it's romantic nonsense invented by playwrights who never carried a scroll in their lives. Either way, you've always liked the idea. By noon, the sun begins to flex its muscles. Your straw hat casts a feeble shadow as you trudge along a narrow embankment road lined with plum trees. Bees drowse lazily in the air. You munch on the boiled egg from earlier, which tastes mostly like road dust with a hint of, "You should have peeled this better." A merchant cart passes, a creaky wooden contraption pulled by two oxen and piled with ceramic cups. The merchant waves, then immediately shouts, "Don't drink the tea in Yanju. My cousin lost a tooth." You nod solemnly, unsure what to do with this public service announcement, and walk on. By early afternoon, you reach a checkpoint, one of the small watchtowers that pepper the countryside like paranoid mushrooms. A guard slouched in boredom waves you over. "Scrolls." You show him your courier pass and the official seal on your satchel. His eyes drift to the silk packet. "What's that?" "Confidential," you reply as blandly as you can manage. He frowns. Not in suspicion, just in the way a man frowns when he remembers he forgot his lunch. Then he waves you through. "Careful on the eastern path," he mutters. River swelled after the rains, some of the trails been washed out. "Thanks," you say. You turn onto the eastern path just as a gust of wind flings a cascade of petals across your face like nature's version of confetti. Somewhere, A bird mimics a flute tune so perfectly you glance behind you. The river comes into view a while later, broad and glinting in the sun, its surface broken only by the occasional ripple or the sudden leap of a fish that immediately regrets its life choices. The road here narrows along the bank, and sure enough, sections of it are muddy or washed thin. You proceed with care, shoes squelching with every step. Here, the world is quieter. The river hums, the trees offer no judgment, and even the air feels less political. You stop on a boulder near a bend and unwrap the rice crackers from shuie. They're mostly broken and vaguely taste like disappointment, but they're fuel. You chew thoughtfully, gazing at the horizon where mountains rise like blue dreams. And for just a moment the packet catches the light. Silk gleaming, seal unbroken, still a mystery, still yours to carry. The river trail, as it turns out, is less a trail and more an exercise in mud-based improvisation. Chunks of the path have eroded into the water, replaced with makeshift planks, stones stacked by kindly strangers, and in one spot, a raft someone just left tied to a bush like. Here, figure it out. You pick your way forward carefully, balancing across narrow ledges and testing each footstep like you're trying to outwit a sleepy tiger. Eventually, the path rises again, curving upward toward dry terrain and a welcome smattering of pine trees. The cool resin scent floats through the air like forest incense, and your feet finally squelch less with every step. A breeze threads between the branches, and somewhere up ahead you hear the faint sound of laughter. You follow the sound, intrigued. A clearing appears, and in it, a game of shuttlecock. 4 kids and one stooped elderly man take turns batting a feathered cork with their feet, knees, elbows. And once, in a surprising show of acrobatics, someone's forehead. The man spots you, grins a grin carved from decades of countryside mischief, and bows with exaggerated ceremony. "Traveler, join us and forget your weariness," he says, tossing the shuttlecock your way. You catch it out of the air. It's tempting. The road has been long, your legs are complaining in several dialects, and the sun is polite but persistent in its roasting of your shoulders. You smile but shake your head. "I carry something that prefers to arrive on time." "Everything does," the old man chuckles. "Especially regrets." You leave the clearing with a lighter step. Beyond the pine grove, the road opens into terraced fields, layered steps of green and gold. Farmers are mid-harvest, bent low and moving in slow, practiced rhythm. A boy herds ducks with a stick, guiding them between puddles like he's conducting an orchestra made entirely of honking and chaos. You greet a woman by the road who offers you a slice of pickled radish from a wooden tray. You accept. It's the sort of flavor that slaps your taste buds and politely tells them to sit up straight. "Heading east?" she asks. You nod. "Mind the shrine just before Wuzhen village. Something stirred up the foxes last night." "Ah yes, Tang folklore alert. Foxes are not just woodland creatures here. They are cunning spirits, tricksters, shapeshifters, sometimes benevolent, sometimes less so." Historians still argue whether tales of fox spirits were purely metaphorical, warnings against untrustworthy people, or if there were actual cults devoted to these beings, especially in remote mountain regions. Some scrolls reference ritual offerings, while others dismiss them as rustic distractions from Confucian values. Either way, you thank her, pocket a second piece of radish for later, and continue. A couple of hours pass. The packet remains sealed, warm against your side. The fields eventually give way to rolling hills. You pause for water near a stone lion that marks the entrance to Wuzhen, an old village with crooked rooflines and courtyards tucked behind walls of ivy. Chickens cross the road with such purpose you assume they've got appointments. You follow the main lane into town, nodding to a carpenter adjusting wooden shutters, 2 elderly women plucking dried herbs, and a teenage girl spinning thread in a doorway, mouthing the lyrics to a song you only half remember. At the center of Wuzhen stands the shrine. Small, red, and flanked by 2 statues, foxes carved from granite, eyes narrow and gleaming in a way stone absolutely shouldn't. A ring of offerings encircles the shrine. Jujubes, rice cakes, small folded paper charms, and a very modern-looking hairpin that clearly belongs to someone with style and a sense of ritual drama. You hesitate at the edge. Then, politely, you bow. Not because you believe or disbelieve, but because the road has taught you that respect is cheaper than repair. As you rise, you notice a man sitting nearby, ink-stained hands, a lap desk balanced across his knees. A calligrapher perhaps, or a bureaucrat on break. He nods at you. Courier. Correct. Coming from the west. You nod again. Interesting. Messages from the east haven't come in 3 days. You say nothing, but your thoughts stir. It's not unheard of for lines to go quiet. Storms, bandits, bureaucratic sulks. But 3 days is a long silence in Tang terms. You find a small food stall and grab a roll of flatbread with sesame and scallion. It's warm, flaky, and filled with enough oil to lube a wagon wheel. Perfection. You sit in the shade, chewing slowly, staring across the square where a child is dragging a string tied to a gourd. The gourd, by the way, has a face drawn on it. Probably an emperor, possibly a cousin. You linger in Wuzhen for an hour. Then the packet buzzes metaphorically against your ribs, time to go. The next stretch is quiet. Fewer homes, more trees. A winding road that snakes between boulders and dips into hollows filled with the croak of frogs and the rustle of underbrush. You spot a hawk circling overhead. The old courier tailies say hawks used to guide elite messengers through mountain passes, trained to cry out when danger was near. Some say they still do. Some say they never did, some just really like hawks. You keep walking. Midway up a hill, you stop to catch your breath and glance behind you. Nothing, just the road. But something in the air has shifted. Subtle. You adjust your grip on the satchel, feeling the weight of it, like a sentence about to be spoken. The silk packet sits inside, patient and unchanged. Yet the closer you get to its final destination, the more it seems aware. Of what? That's unclear, but it knows you carry it, and it's waiting too. The hill crests slowly, the road softening into gravel and packed dirt as your boots crunch along its back like a respectful traveler on a slumbering dragon. Trees arch overhead, their leaves whispering secrets in a dialect only the wind fully understands. There's a stillness here, not the kind that unsettles, but the kind that hushes even your thoughts. You move slower, feeling the atmosphere thicken around you. Whether it's the altitude, the humidity, or the sheer silence, everything seems heavier now, each step deliberate, each breath deeper than the last. A faint bell tolls in the distance. Not a grand monastery bell, mind you. Just a soft village chime, the kind that rings to mark noon or signal the arrival of the tofu vendor. But here in this silence, it's a message all its own. You descend into the valley. Ahead lies Malin village, barely more than 2 streets crossed like an accidental X on a map. It smells like steamed rice, wood smoke, and wet bamboo. A dog barks once, then rethinks its life choices and curls back up by the inn steps. You stop at a water trough and splash your face. The courier station here is tucked behind the herbalist's shop, discreet, like a shy official pretending to browse licorice root. Inside, a young clerk in a yellow tunic sits behind a bamboo desk, legs swinging like a bored child. He glances up when you enter. Courier seal. You present it. He examines it, then nods, gesturing toward a long ledger that looks like it's been written on by at least 3 generations of increasingly illegible calligraphers. Drop off. You offer him the 2 scrolls bound for Malin. He scribbles something down, then peers into your satchel. His eyes catch the silk packet. You're going to Huyen? He asks, a little too casually. You match his tone. I am. He hesitates. They've been particular lately. About outsiders. Particular how? He shrugs. Depends who you ask. The mayor blames it on plague fears. The grain merchants say it's politics. The monks say there's too much yang energy in the east wind. He grins as if this is somehow helpful. Anyway, good luck. You leave the station and find a small stall selling dumplings. Pork and chive, piping hot. The wrapper scalds your tongue and you curse inwardly while smiling like it's totally fine. Always good to look like you enjoy the taste of regret wrapped in dough. As you eat, an elderly woman shuffles by, balancing a basket of mushrooms on her head. She pauses beside you. "You've got the look," she says. You blink. The look. The "I'm carrying something that'll change somebody's entire week" look. Maybe a promotion, maybe a scandal, maybe just another appointment they'd rather avoid. You smile politely, unsure how to respond. Before you can, she totters off into the mist like some riddle-slinging sage who only accepts dumpling offerings. You finish eating, retie your satchel, and set off again. The road to Huyen curves northeast, hugging the edge of a mountain slope like a ribbon flung by a distracted deity. Here, the foliage changes. The bamboo gives way to scrub pine. The air thins just enough that your ears notice. You adjust your stride. The path is well maintained but narrow, barely wide enough for two oxen side by side if they were feeling particularly cooperative. To your left, the slope drops sharply into terraced farms below. To your right, jagged rock walls rise like ancient scrolls etched by time. A few prayer flags flutter from a wooden pole, tattered, sun-bleached, and full of purpose. Midway along a tight bend, you encounter a stone monument. Just a single waist-high block with faded carvings, dragons, clouds, and what looks like a bird trying to deliver a scroll mid-thunderstorm. A courier's monument, perhaps, or maybe just someone's attempt at mythological graffiti. Historians still argue whether these roadside stones marked actual courier milestones, or were simply ceremonial markers erected by local governors to curry favor with the capital. Either way, it makes a nice excuse to stop and catch your breath. You sit beside the monument and sip water from your bamboo tube. A cicada buzzes overhead. Somewhere below, a goat bleats with the conviction of a drama student auditioning for a role it already has. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the mountain sound settle into your bones. When you rise again, the packet shifts inside your satchel. You glance down, still sealed, still unassuming, despite the stir it seems to create in every town you pass through. It's not that it glows or hums or anything absurd, but it does seem to cast a long shadow for such a small piece of silk. By late afternoon, Huyen finally appears. Not in grand fashion. There's no soaring gate or engraved arch. Just a gradual thickening of signs. More travelers, carts hauling grain, children playing with tops in the dust, the distant clatter of metal on stone from a blacksmith's yard. The town nestles between hills, huddled like a secret that's pretending not to care if you find it. You cross a low stone bridge and enter the main street. Shops line the sides. Herbalists, paper merchants, tailors, a man carving combs from bone with more flair than seems necessary. Lanterns sway above, catching the light like lazy stars. You head straight for the courier house. It's larger than the ones you've seen before. 2 stories, red columns, roof tiles like dragon scales. Inside, the clerk behind the counter is older, more formal, and far more interested in what's strapped across your back. "Courier seal?" he asks, as if already knowing. You show him. He scans it, nods, then leans forward slightly. "You've got the silk delivery, don't you?" You nod, cautious. He purses his lips. "You'll want to deliver it personally, up the hill, house of magistrate when he's expecting it." Expecting it, that's new. You thank him and step back outside. The magistrate's house sits high above the town, visible even from here. White walls, a curved gate, tiled rooftops that gleam faintly under the late sun. It looks like the kind of place that prefers not to be visited unannounced. You tighten the strap of your satchel and begin the climb. The packet is quiet, but it waits. The path to Magistrate Wen's residence winds up a series of stone terraces, each one slightly more polished than the last. as if the elevation itself is scrubbing away the lower world's mud and noise. Your feet make soft tapping sounds on the steps, the kind of rhythm that makes birds pause mid-chirp and contemplate percussion careers. You pass through an arched gateway flanked by stone lions, one with its paw on a ball, the other on a small cub, symbols of strength and nurturing, respectively, though you can't help but notice both lions still have that faintly judgy expression carved into their granite faces, as if daring you to forget to wipe your shoes. At the top of the stairway, a servant awaits. He's middle-aged, immaculately dressed, and gives you a nod that lands somewhere between polite and perfunctory. You show your courier seal again, and his eyes flicker downward just briefly to the bulge in your satchel. "This way," he says, already turning. You follow through an open-air corridor lined with hanging scrolls, painted cranes, pine trees, a scholar staring meaningfully into a cup of tea. The stone floor cools your feet through the thin soles of your boots, and the scent of sandalwood coils in the air, curling into your nose like a polite ghost. Then, a door opens, and you're ushered into a study. The room is simple but powerful in its elegance. Lacquered shelves filled with rolled documents, ink stones arranged in deliberate disarray, and a tall desk by the window where Magistrate Wen stands with his back to you, hands clasped behind him. He turns slowly. His robes are indigo and gold, his beard precisely trimmed, and his face carries the quiet exhaustion of someone who's read far too many petitions and trusted far too few people. "You've arrived," he says. "Not welcome, not thank you, just the confirmation of a prediction." "Yes, Magistrate." You present the silk-wrapped packet. He steps forward and takes it gently, like a sleeping child or a claymore. With delicate fingers, he unties the wrapping and reveals the scroll inside. It's sealed in red wax, the stamp unfamiliar to you. He doesn't break it. Instead, he stares at it for several long moments. You begin to wonder if you're meant to stay or melt quietly into the floorboards. Finally, he speaks. "This was supposed to arrive 2 days ago." You stiffen slightly. There were delays on the Western Road. He doesn't accuse you of anything, doesn't raise his voice, but there's a subtle shift in his expression, some calculation flickering behind his eyes. Then, as quickly as it came, it vanishes. "Your duty is complete," he says. You bow, unsure whether this is a dismissal or a decoy for more conversation. He gestures to the servant. "Escort our courier to the guest hall. He may rest before returning." The servant nods, and you are guided through another set of winding corridors, this time quieter, more shaded, with the hush of a koi pond somewhere just out of view. Inside the guest hall, a table is already set with tea and fruit. Plums, lychees, and those tiny, tart oranges that explode in your mouth like a citrus firework. You sit, muscles easing into the silk cushion, and pour yourself a cup. The tea is floral, slightly earthy, and absolutely the best thing you've tasted since that dumpling in Malin that tried to assassinate your tongue. A breeze stirs the paper screen beside you, and for the first time today you feel genuinely still. But rest is a fickle thing. Even as you sip, you can't help but replay the magistrate's tone, the tension in the room, the weight of that scroll. Who sent it? And why did it need such a discreet delivery? Historians still argue whether certain magistrates during the Tang Dynasty wielded more real power than the court officials in Chang'an itself. Some records suggest regional governors held entire militaries under personal loyalty, enough to stage revolts or silence dissent before it ever reached the capital. Wen, you suspect, is the kind of man who writes between the lines more often than on them. As night drapes itself over Huyin, lanterns are lit around the compound. Your host does not summon you again. Instead, a young girl arrives to show you to your sleeping quarters, modest but clean, with a padded mat, mosquito net, and a painted ceiling featuring a moon that seems to wink if you squint at it just right. You lie down, and for a brief moment, you believe sleep will come easily. But your body, trained to the rhythm of roads and deadlines, has its own ideas. It holds tension like an unopened letter, one that insists on being read even if it's written in ink you can't quite translate. Eventually you drift, and you dream not of home or glory or even dumplings, but of the scroll, still sealed, still silent, still pulling at the threads of your curiosity like a moth nibbling on the edges of propriety. In the dream, the scroll opens, but there's no writing, only a mirror. And in that mirror you see yourself standing not on a road but at a fork. Each path leads to a different city, different choices, different truths. You wake just before dawn. The pillow is slightly damp either from sweat or the whisper of something forgotten. A knock at the door. The same servant appears, bowing slightly. Your return path has been cleared. The magistrate sends thanks. You nod, gather your things, and step back into the morning haze. Huyen is quiet again, the town not yet fully stirred. Smoke trails from breakfast fires. A rooster questions reality from a rooftop. And the scroll, now absent from your satchel, feels like it's still watching. You pass under the lions once more. Their expressions haven't changed, but maybe yours has. The road from Huyen stretches out before you, dipped in dew and morning hush. Your boots leave prints that steam gently in the rising sun, the scent of last night's fire smoke still clinging to the folds of your robe. There's something oddly hollow about walking away from a delivery like that, like finishing a riddle only to discover the punchline's been withheld. Your satchel is lighter, yes, but your thoughts, not so much. You follow the path south, the hills casting long shadows that stretch like yawns. A flock of birds wheels overhead, swallows maybe, or starlings in disguise, tracing patterns in the sky too intricate to decode. You consider for just a second how many of your deliveries have gone unread, unopened, or misunderstood. Messages have power, but only if they're met with the right eyes and the right moment. Speaking of eyes, yours catch something glinting by the roadside. A broken bronze mirror half buried in gravel. Just the edge of it, enough to reflect your face in a warped, carnival sort of way. You bend, pick it up. The back bears the worn etching of a lotus half erased by time. You tuck it into your pouch. Not for any reason, really. Just, it feels like the sort of thing you're meant to carry now. Down the hill, a stone way station awaits. This one is more modest than the others. A single-tiled roof propped over a shaded bench. Its wooden beams etched with travelers' initials, idle haikus, and one particularly bold squirrel's claw marks. You sit stretching your legs and sipping water. A farmer approaches from the east, leading a donkey that looks personally offended by the concept of work. The man nods. You from Huyen. You nod back. Big commotion yesterday. Said some imperial message came through. Sealed scroll. Not even the mayor's aide could look at it. You blink, keeping your face neutral. I just deliver them. The farmer chuckles. Right, but you ever wonder what they say? What if it's some poem that makes the emperor cry? Or a recipe that's only been whispered in dreams? He grins. Or just some official asking for more ink. You smile, probably that last one. Still, he's not wrong. There's a quiet revolution in every message. Even a grocery list changes the day. After a brief chat about grain prices and a passing comment on the audacity of mountain goats, you set off again. The road curls around a ridge, descending into farmland. Rice paddies shimmer like mirrors laid out in rows, and herons stalk through the water with the kind of patience you can only envy. You pass a roadside shrine, tiny, no taller than your knees. Inside, a clay figurine sits with crossed legs, carved into the likeness of a postal deity. Well, a postal deity. Historians still argue whether there ever was a formally worshipped courier god in the Tang Dynasty, or if these little idols were local folk inventions, part superstition, part wishful thinking. You leave a plum by the statue just in case. Can't hurt. And besides, if you had to watch people's mail get rained on all day, you'd probably want a snack too. By midday, you reach the river crossing. A wide, slow-moving stretch of water, bridged by a long wooden span that creaks in a rhythm older than most of the travelers it carries. You step onto the planks. Each one seems to sigh beneath your weight, though not in protest, more like recognition. You've walked this road before. The bridge remembers you. At the far end, a merchant caravan rests in the shade. Oxen swat flies with methodical indifference. A young woman in a blue robe tunes a pipa, the notes soft and incomplete like a dream someone forgot the ending to. She looks up and offers a smile. Courier. You nod. We passed you a few days ago near Yun River. You were arguing with a goose. You squint. That goose started it. She laughs not unkindly. It always does. The caravan master offers you dried melon and a seat. You accept both, listening as they trade tailies, rumors of drought to the west, new taxes in the north, and a mysterious edict in the capital that may or may not involve all government officials being required to grow facial hair. One man swears he heard it from a palace guard's cousin's neighbor's nephew. You linger for half an hour. Then you rise, bow, and return to the road. The sun begins its slow descent behind the hills, turning the sky gold, then pink, then a sleepy lavender that tugs at your eyelids. You pass a field of chrysanthemums. They lean toward you slightly, as if eavesdropping on your thoughts. Your next stop is Beishui, 2 villages away. A light load for once, just a wrapped letter and a folded document. Both headed to the same person, a retired scholar named Lao Shen who once taught poetry at the academy in Chang'an. You've delivered to him before. He always pays in candied ginger and unsolicited advice. The road narrows here, flanked by reeds and low stone walls. You hum softly, a tune with no name. It helps keep rhythm, helps pass the time. The sort of melody that may have come from a lullaby or a marching chant or the hum of wagon wheels on cobblestone. Hard to tell anymore. And then there it is, the ridge before Beishui. You crest the final slope, watching as the rooftops of the village peek out like shy children from behind their mother's skirts. Smoke curls upward. Someone's cooking fish. Your stomach growls in betrayal. At the edge of town, a dog recognizes you from past visits and barks in reluctant welcome. Another courier once said dogs were the true judges of character, unbribable, unswayed, and highly suspicious of leather satchels. You believe it. You knock at Lao Shen's gate just as the first stars prick the sky. The old man answers in a cloud of tea steam and beard. You're late, he says, eyeing you like an underperforming poem. Only by a day. Exactly. That's enough for a revolution. You hand him the documents. He grumbles appreciatively, then hands you a pouch of ginger. Eat one now, helps with thinking. You do. It burns and soothes all at once. Did you ever wonder, he says, how many lives you've altered just by walking? You raise an eyebrow. Messages don't just inform, he says, they tilt the scales. A letter of love makes a family, a verdict splits one. A request for aid shifts coin, or soldiers, or sympathy. You, my friend, are a quiet storm. You consider this. Then say, I also get barked at by ducks. Lao Shen laughs, and the stars overhead twinkle like they heard that one before. You sleep that night under the scholar's roof, a bedroll by the hearth and the faint scent of old books and fried scallions lingering in the rafters. Lao Shen snores like a bear with opinions, but it's oddly comforting. Like being curled up inside a poem someone started writing 100 years ago and never quite finished. At dawn, he's already awake, sipping tea like it's a religion and muttering philosophical grievances about the modern decline of inkbrush technique. You thank him for the hospitality, accept another piece of candied ginger, which your tongue both fears and craves, and set back onto the road before the sun crests fully over the hills. Today's route takes you east, across flatter ground where the roads are dry and dust clings like a needy cousin. Farmers wave from the paddies, their hats bobbing above the rows like floating parasols. A child runs beside you for half a mile, pretending you're in a race. You let him win. The smile he shoots you could power a lighthouse. A little before noon, you stop at a bamboo grove. It's quiet here. The wind rattles the stalks with a papery murmur, like gossiping ghosts. You chew on dried lotus root and sip from your flask, shoes off, feet pressed into warm dirt. You think about the scroll from Huyen again, how the magistrate never opened it in front of you, how his face looked like it had too many thoughts and not enough places to hide them. Historians still argue whether internal corruption among Tang magistrates was widespread, or simply exaggerated by rival factions, hoping to smear reputations for political gain. Some accounts hint at letters like the one you carried, messages passed discreetly between powerful men, filled with names, favors, and threats that never made it to the official record. The empire was vast, but trust was a rare ink. You sigh and rise. The road waits. By mid-afternoon, clouds roll in, not dark, just lazy and indifferent, like they've got somewhere to be but aren't in a rush. You walk through the golden haze of distant rain, the world around you softened, blurred, dreamlike. A vendor cart appears by the side of the road, its umbrella tilted rakishly, its owner snoring on a mat beside pickled eggs and something that might once have been a chicken foot. You take a coin and tap the bell. He wakes with a snort and sells you a small bundle of rice stuffed with mushrooms and chestnut. You chew slowly as you walk, the savory warmth easing something tight behind your eyes. Even couriers deserve tiny luxuries, you decide. Besides, last week you got attacked by a goat with ambition, earned this. Your final delivery of the day is at a village tucked behind a bend in the river. A place so small it doesn't always appear on maps, but its people remember your name. It's comforting. Here you're not just the postman, you're their postman. A woman greets you at the gate, hands flour-dusted from kneading dumplings. You pass her the letter and she lights up. "My cousin's son is getting married," she exclaims. "They invited the whole family, even the cousins we pretend not to like." You grin. Love is contagious like that. She tries to hand you a sack of steamed buns in thanks. You protest, as tradition requires, but you do take one, maybe two. As you walk back toward the main road, the river glints beside you, full and slow. You pause on the bridge to eat your bun, leaning on the railing and watching a turtle swim beneath the surface like it's late for a meeting with a fish. Across the river, you spot an old shrine, barely standing, its roof half collapsed, vines creeping up its sides. Something about it tugs at you. You've passed this place before but never looked closely. This time you step off the path. The shrine is quiet. Inside, a single stone statue sits, worn smooth by weather and prayer. It's a fox, carved with clever eyes and a smile too knowing for comfort. A scattering of offerings lies at its feet. Rice, a coin, a folded paper charm shaped like a rabbit. You kneel and set down a button that came off your robe 3 towns ago. It's nothing much, but the fox seems amused. You sit for a while in that ruined shrine. The air smells of damp earth and old incense. You think of all the messages you've carried. Love letters, legal decrees, coded warnings, birthday wishes, debt reminders, philosophical ramblings, invitations to banquets, and rejections from bureaucratic exams. All of them wrapped in your steps. And still, the roads keep calling. There's something deeply strange and strangely comforting about being the thread between people. You don't stay long enough to see the endings, but you begin things, or stir things. You're the whisper that shows up wrapped in twine. Back on the road, the light turns amber. You pass a trio of goats having what appears to be a heated discussion. One looks up at you, bleats, and goes back to chewing grass like it just can't be bothered anymore. Probably politics. The next village is still a few hours off, and the road ahead bends out of sight. But your legs move with the rhythm of habit, your breath syncing with the cadence of this life. There are nights when it all feels like too much. The weight of empire, the hunger, the rain that never ends. But then there are days like this, when a bun tastes just right, when someone's eyes light up at your arrival, when you sit by a ruined shrine and feel, just briefly, like the world remembers you. You stop briefly at a field's edge, watching fireflies begin their slow, flickering dance in the grass. Tiny lanterns. No destination, just glowing. A light rain begins to fall, soft and shy. You tug your hat forward and let it fall on your shoulders, cool and rhythmic, like the tap of a child asking for a story. And so, you walk on, beneath clouds and fox statues and unfinished dreams. Toward the next delivery, the next door, the next moment where someone says you came. And you say, of course. The rain tapers off as you near the final village of your route. Just a drizzle now, more suggestion than storm. The clouds hang low and indulgent, casting everything in a soft gray blur, like the world's been wrapped in silk gauze. The earth squelches beneath your steps, thick and sticky, the kind of mud that tries to claim your shoes like a clingy admirer. By the time you reach the outskirts of the village, night has fully arrived, quiet, moonless, with the kind of stillness that makes even frogs hesitant to croak. A lone lantern glows at the gate, and beside it stands an old woman in layered robes, holding a parasol over her head and a wooden cane that looks like it might have once belonged to a tree deity. "You're later than the last one," she says, peering at you through a squint that feels centuries deep. "I walk at the speed of the Empire," you reply, managing not to smile too hard. She nods. "Well, the Empire should invest in faster boots." You hand her the final scroll of your journey. She accepts it reverently, then tucks it under her sleeve like a precious egg. This one contains a land contract, not just ink soil. The past, the future, all tied to paper. Funny, isn't it? Terrifying, actually. She chuckles. Good. Fear keeps things interesting. You stay a while, long enough for her to offer you warm broth from a gourd and a place by the hearth inside. Her house is low-ceilinged and filled with the smell of dried orange peel and smoke. In one corner, 3 cats are asleep in a pile, each one snoring like a separate wind instrument. The old woman hums as she stirs her pot, and you notice her humming the same tune you've been humming all week. You blink, she winks. Couriers carry more than letters, child. Sometimes they carry songs, sometimes stories. Sometimes things that don't belong to them at all, and that's the point. Outside, the rain has stopped. The sky begins to clear, revealing constellations between wisps of cloud. You step out onto the porch, sipping the last of the broth, watching mist drift across the rice paddies like forgotten thoughts. A firefly lands on your sleeve. You let it stay. Down the road, past the lanterns, past the fields, past the hushed homes and tucked away secrets, your return path awaits. In the morning, you'll begin the walk back toward the capital. Maybe not straight away, maybe with a few detours. There's a tailor who owes you a story, a child who said he'd catch a fish the size of a dog, and a widow with a cat who insists on checking your satchel for mice. Your boots are worn, your shoulders ache, but your heart, still curious, still ready. You stretch beneath the stars, their light gentle and unimpressed by your schedule. Somewhere, another courier walks another road, carrying words that may change a life or simply remind someone they're not forgotten. And here you are, just one postman among many, but still you, a living thread, a walker between names and need, distance and meaning. You lie back on the porch, eyes half closed, breath slowing. The frogs finally gather their courage and resume their chorus. Somewhere in the distance, a flute begins to play, a song without urgency, just notes carried like petals on a breeze. And now the wind down begins. The road has quieted now. The village behind you settles into its breath, roofs exhaling steam into the night, and even the trees seem to lean closer, listening for dreams. Your limbs are heavy, not with exhaustion exactly, but with the quiet fullness that comes after a long story told well. The stars blink above, soft and slow. Their rhythm matches yours now, long inhale, long exhale. No hurry, no map, just the gentle gravity of rest, drawing everything down, down, down into stillness. The ground beneath you is warm where the sun touched it earlier. The last sounds of the day, an owl calling, a shutter closing, The creak of bamboo in the breeze drift past like feathers, like sighs. The world itself seems to rock, just a little, as if swaying you gently toward the edge of sleep. You think of the river, the bridge, the shrine with the clever fox, the boy who raced you. You think of ginger candies, waystation benches, crooked tiles, and scrolls wrapped in red twine. You think of all the small connections, the invisible threads stretched across mountains and fields and quiet roads. And you are one of them. You are part of the story now, and the story is part of you. So breathe. Let your body grow heavier with each moment. Let your thoughts unfurl like paper left beside an open window. You've walked far. You've delivered the day. You've earned this. Sleep now, little postman of the empire. Let the journey pause. The road will wait. The ink will dry. The stars will keep watch. And when morning comes, it will do so gently, with light fingers, and no need to rush.